What's good, everybody? So, a little bit of a training log today. This is a full upper body workout. I made a couple modifications to the program, and weirdly enough, I did this workout at night after a day of some programming and whatnot. So, this is kind of a rare occurrence. I had enough time, just a fun little chill Saturday night workout. So, what I want you guys to focus on here is the technique that I'm using and the proximity to failure that I'm using for each lift. One recurring theme that you'll see in most of my training is going to be the emphasis on the weighted stretch of each lift. When I'm doing this machine press, you'll see I do a little pause in the bottom, and if this was a bar, it would be 2 to 3 inches below my chest, and this is why I use the machine, because dumbbells and barbells wouldn't necessarily allow me to get that. Dumbbells would in certain scenarios, but the machine, the weight is stacked all the way to the side, so that's a huge advantage over that plate-loaded machine. With these barbell curls here, this is the first time I'm doing like a dead stop barbell curl. So it's paused in the bottom. There's no tension. It's just an easy way for me to continue to progress in reps because there's no cheating. I'm starting from a dead stop each time. You'll see the proximity to failure here is absolutely ruthless. I'm just pushing all the way. Obviously, I could do partials or a drop set, but I don't think that's entirely necessary, at least at where I'm at in training right now. Up next, you're going to see these seated cable rows. This is the first time I've done these in probably over a year. I haven't touched them since I got my plate-loaded machine, but these are just a great lift. One thing I'm noticing with the machines is the only downside to them is going to be the chest support. It really pushes in my chest, especially once you get pretty heavy on them, and it makes it a little bit tricky to breathe. So with these, I can actually use my legs and my lower back strength to brace, and I can just get the weighted stretch that way. But obviously, either way, it's going to be tough when you get too heavy on these. So as many clean reps as I can get, and then a few partials and cheat reps past failure. It's my first time doing these in a while, so obviously it's going to be a little awkward for the first week or two, trying to get in the groove in terms of technique, weight, rep range, etc. This is going to be the JM press that you're seeing. This is basically my favorite lift at the moment. It's a really weird angle. Every time I try to film it from the side, it doesn't always work that well because the posts of the power rack get in the way, and then I have two giant machines next to me. So you can't quite see the right angle of my forearms. It almost looks like a little bit more like a bench press, but in reality, my forearms are actually much more parallel to the floor than they are perpendicular to it. It is a little bit tough to tell from this angle. So it's a lot of bend in my arm. Either way, you can see when I'm at the bottom of each rep, the angle between my forearm and my upper arm is so small. And the key with that is just getting the stretch on the tricep. Very rarely do we do lifts for our triceps that get that stretch. You hear all the time people talking about dips, close grip bench, barbell bench, even push downs. These lifts don't give you that full-on tension, maximize tension in the stretch position, and that's why so many people have small arms, lagging triceps, and myself included. It wasn't until a couple years ago that I realized this is the way they have to train. And here I'm changing my technique up a little bit on overhead extensions. I've never been big on doing them with the cable, but I am starting to prefer them now that I'm refining my technique here. The biggest thing for me is actually getting strong in that stretch position. I'm still pretty weak in it, so I do have to drop the weight. If you have to meet a certain technique in your training, or you want to meet a certain technique in your training, your weight has to adapt to the technique, not the other way around. So even though it feels a little bit weird to decrease the weight by 20 or 25 pounds on here, it's for the sake of the technique, and the technique will bring bigger triceps, and the triceps will bring the bigger weight. So if you're worried about that, it's a short-term sacrifice, and it's ultimately worth it in the end. Same thing there. I did as many clean reps as I could, which wasn't that many. They're pretty weak. I'm pretty weak in that position. And then I did little tiny partial mini reps after that. Up next, you're seeing reverse curls. These were a staple in my training for a while out of this past year. I haven't had them in my program in probably about 2 or 3 months. So getting back to them, a little bit awkward, but I know I could use them. I focused a lot more on my wrist flexors than the extension or the reverse curl motion. These are kind of funky too. You're going to hit that sticking point about halfway up, so I do like to cheat a little bit by bringing my elbows forwards. Your forearms are very active at the top of the motion too, so full range of motion here is going to be most beneficial to you. Right here you're seeing this is the starting point of the growth of the forearms. 2023 is going to be the year of forearms. I want to revolutionize and popularize forearm training, especially for hypertrophy. Bodybuilders all about getting big everywhere, but people seem to ignore forearms, at least in the hypertrophy, non-competitive bodybuilding community, and I would like to change that. I think they're relatively easy to train. They're pretty fast to train, and it's an area that we all need to improve on, myself included. So what I'm doing here is a stretched wrist curl. The technique that I use is I do one arm at a time with a dumbbell, set my forearm to be parallel to the ground on a flat bench. I let the dumbbell pull my wrist down, pull my hand down, get an insane stretch on my forearm, and then lower it down into my fingertips, and then I curl it back up to my palm, and then curl my wrist back up. Once I can't do those, I just do stretch position finger curls that you're seeing here, and these are probably the most painful thing you will ever experience if you actually push them right to failure. So I highly recommend you do them in your program. They will blow up your forearms.